Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're talking about Avengers. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and salutations. Today, more is better. Let's get to it. So, we've recently gotten to see more cutscenes, but more importantly, more gameplay from the upcoming game Avengers coming from Crystal Dynamics. Now, as we found out previously, the main protagonist that you will be playing and seeing in the game is Kamala Khan, also known as Ms. Marvel, not to be confused with Carol Danvers, who's also sometimes called Ms. Marvel or currently called Captain Marvel. Now, we already know some of the plot line of the game. We have A-Day, Avengers Day, where it's a celebration of heroes, and it goes terribly, terribly wrong, where the helicarrier crashes and people get hurt or killed, and there's a general bad publicity surrounding it and heroes. And in steps into that vacuum an organization called AIM. Now, we have found out that the main antagonist of this game, at least for the foreseeable future, is Modok. Now, fans of the Marvel movies will not be so much familiar with Modok, but those fans of the comics have seen Modok many times, all the way back from the beginning when he was first showcased in 1967. And Modok is a serious threat for any coordinated band of heroes. So, of course, this makes sense for the Avengers. Now, although we did get to see a lot more in terms of the game and the gameplay, we did not see a whole lot of the UI. Although what I did see looks to be very similar to what we saw a couple months back with the A-Day gameplay. Now, Avengers, of course, is going to be a looter-shooter type of game, and we found out a little bit more about the combat, where each hero will be able to have melee and ranged attacks, as well as 3 different ability attacks. Now, these abilities are going to be called heroic moves, and there are 3 of them, as I said. One is an assault move, which regenerates relatively quickly, one that is a support move, and the ultimate, which of course has the longest cooldown. So support can mean a variety of things, whether healing yourself or others, or protecting others, or giving them an opening or increasing the damage that they do. Assault will help take care of adds, and depending on what ability or heroic move and what hero you're playing as, will determine whether it is more of an area of an attack or concentrated. And then, of course, your ultimate is the move that is going to make your character feel powerful. Now, talking about power, there are several ways to increase your power within the game, both RPG elements and looter elements. So the looter elements, you have different pieces of gear, artifacts, weapons, etc. that will increase your power, and each of those has a gear power associated with that, and rarity. So the more rare the item, the more perks or bonuses it will have, and the higher the gear power, the more useful it will be in higher or more challenging missions. And as you play missions, you get experience or points that will translate into upgrades for your abilities. So each ability has different varieties that make it more powerful or more useful. There are more melee-oriented attacks and then long-range attacks. So depending on how you play, you can unlock those powers first. Now, speaking of missions, there are a couple of different types of missions. You have the campaign missions or solo missions, which you can only do by yourself, and then you have Warzone missions, which you can do with up to 3 of your friends. And if you don't want to play with random people, you can always play with AI characters. Now, Crystal Dynamics even went so far as to say that in the future post-launch, that they have the ability to add new areas and new heroes. And I think that's really smart so that the gameplay, doesn't get stale as quickly. Playing a new hero in an old map is going to be just as interesting as playing an old hero or one that you've had from the beginning on a new map. So that'll give you some variety across the board in terms of gameplay. Now, as ambitious as this project is and as impressive as the gameplay that we've seen so far is, there are a variety of pitfalls and challenges that they will need to face and overcome in order to become a viable option for any either Marvel enthusiasts or looter shooter enthusiasts. So let's go over those really quickly. So in terms of Marvel enthusiasts, the number and types of heroes that are available throughout the life of the game will certainly cause people to be more or less interested. So if you only start the game with 4 or 5 different characters that you can play, and then you only get maybe one every 6 months, so there needs to be a cadence to when things are released so that people know what to expect, even if they don't know what is coming in the near future. If they know that something or someone new is coming out, say every 2 months, new costumes, new cosmetics are coming out, on every other month or every 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be. I think it's something to keep that player base engaged. Now, Crystal Dynamics has said that you can play your way. So if you want to play Hulk as a long-range attacker instead of a melee attacker, that you can do so. Unfortunately, games of this type are notorious for having a meta build for different characters or for different specializations. So they will need to be able to maintain several builds, at least 2 or 3 different builds that are equally or approximately as powerful, and not just have that one meta build that rules them all. Now, in terms of looter enthusiasts and just game enthusiasts in general, the amount and types of loot will certainly make a big difference in the game. So when and how you gain loot, and of course, how much diversity is there in loot. So looking at, say, Iron Man's repulsor, with the different rarity types, even within the same rarity type, how much variety is there and how much RNG or how much diversity is there within each rarity type. So if there is only, say, one legendary or prime piece of gear and it is always the same, I don't think will be as interesting as if there are a spectrum of stats or perks on each type of gear. So gear power is certainly one way to do it, but also, in addition to that, having a variety of different perks that can be on each piece, not to mention the amount of buffs or defense for each piece. So if there is a piece that does, 10% increased range damage versus a piece that does 12% increased ranged damage on the same rarity piece for the same hero. So Crystal Dynamics will have to navigate that challenge very carefully, because the amount and types of loot and the spectrum of loot will certainly play an important role in the replayability and the fun factor of people going in and playing. So if you go in and you play, you get a whole bunch of loot, but it really isn't worthwhile, then it's almost like not playing at all. And if you only get one piece of loot for one mission, and that turns out to be not as good as what you already had, then it can feel very frustrating. Additionally, if the end game is really just cosmetics and nameplates and things that only a segment of the population player base is interested in, that's going to be another pitfall that they have to try to avoid. Additionally, if only the best looking cosmetics are available through premium currency, then obviously the player base might be willing to overlook 1 or 2, but if everything that is great is behind that closed door or that gateway of premium currency, I think they're going to be looking at problems. And this is where we talk about the missions. The missions are going to be exciting the first time you play them, but what about the 5th time or the 50th time that you play them? Are they going to have the exact same enemies, the exact same spawn locations every single time that you play it? At some point, no matter what difficulty you're playing and who you're playing with, it's going to get very rote and it is going to be very easy for you to finish these missions, not because of the difficulty level, but because you can expect and know what to expect from each mission and anticipate ahead of time. So in order to overcome this challenge, they need to have variety in each level. So with different heroes, abilities, the RPG elements, the looter elements, the missions, the different types of missions, the different rewards, the different cosmetics, the different factions, all that put together looks very impressive, and I'll be looking forward to the beta closer to the launch of September 4th. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check us out on social media, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.